everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, based on where you are. I'm really excited to tell you that we have launched Jaspersoft 8.1 very recently. And we are going to talk about what's new in Jaspersoft 8X, which it covers 8.0, 8.01, 8.02, and 8.1. We will also demo some of the features to you. So before we start, let me just introduce our presenters. So Abhishek will take us through the new features. And then Anna will take us through the demos for a couple of UI/UX updates. And then Theodore will take over for the JasperReports Web Studio demo. Just a couple of things. We have a 10-minute Q&A session at the end. You can feel free to ask us questions at that time, but we will also be monitoring the chat and the Q&A in Zoom itself. So feel free to post questions. All right, so handing over to Abhishek now.
All right, thanks, Damayanti. Welcome everyone. Welcome to our What's New in Jaspersoft 8.x webinar. I know we did not run a Jaspersoft 8.0 webinar for various reasons, and that's why we thought that we'll combine 8.1 and 8.0 together. So let me jump right in. So these are some of the things that I'll be talking about. Our new support model that we started since 8.0. I will cover what's new in 8.0.x, right? What's new in 8.1. I will just talk briefly about our new product that we have introduced, JasperReports Web Studio. Theodore will be the one who will be going to the entire detailed demo of Web Studio. We'll also spend a couple of minutes on upcoming events and plans, as we are planning a lot of activities going forward. And then I'll hand it over to Anna for the UI/UX demo, and then Theodore, and then back to Damayanti for Q&A. All right. So new support model. So based on what we have done, and this is coming from a lot of feedback that we receive from customers, starting 8.0, we have moved to something called long-term stable and mainstream releases. I've spoken to many customers on a one-on-one basis, explaining why we have done that. There are primarily two reasons. Customers did not want to upgrade, especially if they had larger deployments, and a lot of customizations did not want to jump very frequently, right? And we in past, especially in last year, we had 3 releases in a year, right? Which makes it difficult for customers. So we thought, we'll move to the long-term stable and mainstream release. Long-term stable, as the name says, will be supported for a longer duration. And also, since we'll not be adding any features in a long-term stable release, right, it will become stable much sooner, because we don't add features, leads to much lesser regressions, right? The only 2 things that we'll be addressing in the long-term stable release would be any kind of escalations or hotfixes, or security issues, right? So if any security issues have been reported, for example, Log4j was reported, Spring Frameworks CV was reported, and we put those fixes in 8.0.x, which is the branches of 8.0. So 8.0 was our first long-term stable release. And then we also will have the mainstream releases, and the 8.1 is our first mainstream release. The purpose of mainstream release is twofold. One, it allows us to, as a product group, to introduce some features at a faster pace, right? I would say the downside, if there is one, is that the support duration for mainstream release is not as long as the long-term stable release. So it depends on the customer. So customers can see it from 2 different perspectives. One is that they can look at the product features well in advance before they jump onto the next LTS version. And they can also put that into their dev environment and sandbox environment, just because so let's suppose we'll go through 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, and then we'll maybe jump to a 9.0, right? So we'll use the last mainstream release as the branch to create our next LTS release. So the customers can use the last mainstream release and use that for their testing purposes, right? That gives them a much more time to test out all the features. And also customers who are fine with, they are not into too many customizations, they can always try out the mainstream release, right? It'll be stable, just that the support duration will be shorter. You'll have more information. Damayanti will be sharing more links towards the end, but you can find all the information on our website. moving on, what's new in 8.0.x? So 8.0.x was released in December of last year. And as you can see, it was the first LTS release. Now, what we have done for last couple of years, right? So we have created our own UX COE, and we have Anna, our lead designer, in this presenting one of the demos. So for past 2 years, we have worked with a lot of customers. Anna has done a lot of interviews with different customers. We have also worked with external design firms. Now, our goal is to make sure that we make our product much more UX friendly in terms of look and feel, workflow, features. So with every release, you will see that we'll be adding more and more features to our reporting as well as our self-service. On the reporting side, you are seeing the Web Studio part. On the self-service part, you'll see the improvements in ad hoc and dashboards, right? And Anna will take you through the demos of all these features that I'm talking about, or some of the features that I'm talking about. Now, one of the important ones is a full dashboard export came as a feedback from one of our customers. What it allows you to do, today, if you export the dashboard, you only get a screenshot of whatever is there on the in the dashboard. And let's suppose if you have a table component with 50 pages, you'll only get one page in the export. And with the full dashboard export, it allows you to do the full detail export with all the 50 pages and all the other dashlet. It also allows you to do, get some kind of report stitching. If you have multiple reports in your dashboard and you want them all to be in a single exported PDF, right? That allows you to get to that particular functionality, right? Where customers have done kind of a custom coding in the past to get to report stitching. Now this will be available out of the box. We also had as with every release, right? What we call GSS is Jaspersoft Studio and JasperReports Library. We had multiple updates. In this particular webinar, we'll be not talking about each one of them. So what we do is that on our website, which is jaspersoft.com, you can find all the detailed ones in our What's New section. And also, Damayanti will be highlighting the release notes. The primary thing that we released, which is a big news for us, we have been working on for past 1 year or so on this one. We even released a beta for this one, was the launch of new JasperReports Web Studio. So first release, the independent Web Studio, and now with 8.1, it's integrated within GRS. It's a big news. There have been lots of customer requests on this area, and we are really excited, to release this particular product. And Theodore will be giving a detailed demo on this particular product. We also have introduced a lot of visualizations in JasperReports library, especially high maps, tile maps, tile maps, and master details chart. You can find all the details of each and every chart that we introduced in our What's New section and also in our release notes, right? There's several other features that have been added in the GSS and GRL updates. Some goes back to the open source version, and some are only for the pro version. And for a detailed list, which are there for the open source and which are there for the pro version, we have made sure that we have a dedicated page for that. So for all our open source customers, right, who are using our open source products, they can always go there. They can find out what's new in this particular version of JasperReports Server or Studio or JasperReports Library, for that matter. JasperReports IO was one of our flagship products, which we released some time back, and we are continuing to invest on this. We have made some changes to it. For example, now, initially only the GRXML reports were executed by GRIO. Now we have also added ad hoc reports, which is a big step for GRIO. Very similar to GRIO, one missing piece was we did not have a similar kind of a scalable execution service on the ad hoc and dashboard side. So we introduced that. This is what we call as SQE, or Scalable Query Engine. This gives us flexibility of achieving this. I'll come back to the slide. This is the architecture that we were basically going towards, which we call operational excellence. Now, many of our customers, will put multiple GRS instances behind a load balancer. Now, they are still based on one repository. So with GRIO and Scalable Ad Hoc Engine, what we allow them to do is that if they want to dynamically scale up and scale down in a Kubernetes engine or anywhere else, they can do so right now. So all the ad hoc reports and all the studio reports will be taken care by GRIO. All the ad hoc views, dashboard domains will be taken care by the Scalable Ad Hoc Engine. So we have made it really scalable, and also it leads to operational efficiency, because you don't have to add cores and cores. You can just go with, you can add pods and you can configure that. So that's one of the missing steps that we had after we released GRIO. With the Scalable Query Engine, we have covered that part. Also, in terms of platform updates, with every release, we look at platform updates. When we say platform, it's a combination of application servers, databases, operating systems, JDKs, right? Everything. So with the 8.0, the biggest news was we certified Snowflake, and we also certified Athena. This is again big coming from our customers. We constantly watch our customer request, and we saw the highest request was Snowflake and Athena, and we added them. We certified them. We also updated our Docker project. This was changed, and we have a dedicated GitHub page where we provide a lot of Docker samples. We don't produce containers just for legal reasons, but many of our customers go to our GitHub page and they take our Docker samples and deploy in almost all possible environments, whether you talk about AWS, Azure, GCP, any environment that you talk about, Oracle, right, or in your private cloud. So we kind of revamped that project. It's a new project which is much more efficient. And for more details, you can go on that GitHub. It has release notes. It has all the information about what that project entails. Now, one of the main things which we dealt with, and many other products in the industry dealt with, was the Log4j and Spring for Shell. So what we do as from the security perspective, right, we have an independent security team within TIBCO. So the day any such critical CVs are reported, we make sure that we respond within 24 hours. So we created our wiki pages on the community, informing customers that what is happening, what are we doing, what are our mitigation plans. And as and when we produce hot fixes or service packs, we let them know, we update those particular articles. So you can find them. So we made sure that all our versions are secured from Log4j and Spring for Shell, and you can find all the details on the wiki page. Moving forward, we spoke about this, and in the similar range, right? So our goal is to move towards much more cloud native and a kind of a composable microservices architecture. So in the same way, with 8.0, we kind of put the audit, and these are optional. That means it is not mandatory for you to do that. If you're still fine with the way JRS is shipped, you can continue using it that way. You don't have to use SQE or GRIO or the externalized audit, right? But what it does with the 8.0 release, it will allow you through a configuration to put audit and monitoring tables outside in a similar database, right? It has a lot of performance benefits. It also, because we thought we kind of realized that audit and all they don't fit in the repository DB, and it also reduces the load on the repository. And so this is something that we introduced with 8.0. We have seen a couple of customers already adopting it, and we have got good feedback on this one. All right, next moving to 8.1. 8.1, as I said, is our first mainstream release, right? And as with our theme, we have continued with our UI/UX improvements. One of the major things was user favorites have been requested for a long time. We finally did it. And one of the critical things that we introduced with 8.1 was a server monitoring dashboard. Our goal to have a very strong kind of server admin console, where the customers, especially the admin group, right, can come in and they can see what is happening within Jaspersoft, and not just from the history perspective, they can also take actions. So we have started building the server monitoring dashboard, and the first part, the phase one, if you say that, that was released with 8.1. And we also released an admin console beta, which is the admin console that I was talking about. It will be our next big thing. And we released the beta version because we thought that we can get customer feedbacks. It's a beta, so you cannot create a support ticket, but you can always come to the product team if you have any feedbacks. And we are doing many more improvements on these two topics in the future. So if you ever wanted to look at and collaborate with our UX team, right, feel free to reach out to us, and we can show you the future concepts and take your feedback as well. This will be a good way for you to influence our roadmap. We also had multiple updates in the ad hoc designer, right? These are not major updates, these are minor updates, and all, they will all be highlighted in our release notes and in our guides. We also had updates, in the studio and library. One of the main things that we are working right now is the accessibility part. We were compliant, but there were areas that they did not meet the compliance level, specifically the WCAG 2.0 level AA compliance, which many of our customers, especially on the federal side, have been asking. So that is one of the big projects that have been going on, and we are releasing that in phases. So with 8.1, we made sure that the HTML and PDF exports are fully compliant. With the next mainstream release, or maybe after that, we'll make sure that the other areas of JasperReports server, they also will become compliant. One of the Again, big features of 8.1 is report bursting. Report bursting is something what we call, you can also call it as dynamic alerting, right? And this is done right now. I mean, in the first phase will be done through the studio, where if I can talk about a use case, let's suppose you have a survey report, right? And the first part of the report has all the emails. Now you want to distribute the same survey report to 500 or thousands of your customers, but you don't want to send the email. So with the report bursting, it can go loop through each email ID, and for each email ID, you can burst the remaining report or a completely different report to all these senders. And you can even configure to the extent that you can say, let's suppose you have reports for all 50 states of US, right? And you can say, okay, for this California state, send the report to Abhishek. For Nevada, send it to Anna. For some other state, New Jersey, send it to Theodore. That is the level of customizations you can do with report bursting. So from our perspective, it's a very strong feature. And as I said earlier also, right, all these features, whenever we develop it, we work closely with the customers, we take the use case. And this is again, coming back from our customers, which have been using or have built this custom feature in the past, we have now productized it. Platform updates, a lot of platform updates in 8.1. We release, so Jaspersoft ETL, which is our another ETL product, we release the 8.01 version of ETL in extended big data. We also certified PostgreSQL 13 and 14, including Elasticsearch 8.2.0. We certified Mac OS. And also one of the important things we added was the open telemetry support. We get a lot of support tickets where we have to spend time figuring out what happened, right? And telemetry will help us figure out that, especially in case of, support tickets, to figure out what was the issue, and we can quickly get to it, and this will reduce the overall support timeline from our perspective. I mean, not the support timeline, that won't be the correct word. It's a support analysis, right? Where our developers will go in and try to figure out what is actually happening. And they'll be able to either provide a fix or give an alternative solution to the customer much sooner. Server monitoring, as I said, this is one of the big things we are working as part of our overall admin console part, right? And the 8.1 will give you certain ad hoc reports and dashboards. And you have samples that will come out with 8.1. They are all updated in the guide. So you'll be able to find more information in that part. And some part will be covered by Anna in our demo. Report bursting, this is, I said, it's a pretty big feature for 8.1, and we'll continue to build on it. There's also a concept of data alerting that we are working on, which is not part of 8.1, but it's a concept that we are currently working on. And if any of you have feedbacks on, or use cases in your environment on alerting, do let us know. But report busting is something that we release with 8.1. It is pretty strong feature. And I'm hopeful that, it will help lots of customers in achieving what they want, especially in terms of dynamic alerting. So these are a couple of screens. I don't want to spend too much time on it because Anna will probably, cover that in our demo. But this, as I said, this is a beta screen, right? We wanted to show you the screen that, after a certain time, once we are stable enough on this particular UI, we'll use this UI going forward and not the scheduler UI, the old one. But this is much more. So overall, we are moving to a React platform in general. So this is also built using that. And you can say it's much more modern, much more intuitive, and also in terms of performance, it's much more efficient as compared to the current screens that we have. Web Studio. This is the primary or one of the main themes of our release, right? So has been asked, requested for quite some time. I would say that we have even spoken about it in the past, but we did not take up this project just for the overall, the complexity of the project. But it's a great news that we are able to release this product. Now, there were mainly two reasons. One, many of the customers wanted to go to a complete zero desktop footprint as they're moving to cloud. And having desktop was basically creating a hindrance for that. So we released the Web Studio, the independent Web Studio, as part of 8.0.2. And with that 8.1.0, we are kind of embedding that within JasperReports server. So you can right click on any GRXML within JasperReports server, and you can say open with Studio, right? Now, I also wanted to very clearly highlight, this does not mean that we are ending Desktop Studio. Desktop Studio will continue to exist and evolve simultaneously, right? There will be investment on desktop as well. We're not deprecating it by any means, right? And we are making sure they will be cross-compatible. That means you can take up a GRXML design in Desktop Studio, put that in the Web Studio, and vice versa, right? They both will continue to exist. I also wanted to take 5 minutes to talk about some of the upcoming events and plans that we have. So one of the main things that we have been working on past several months is migrating to our new community platform, right? And this, we really want to make sure that we reignite the community to a much better, to drive more collaboration and contribution. So using this new platform will really help us. And right now our target date is October 3rd. Part of part of the other communities within TIPCO have already migrated, and right now we are planning to we're looking at the October date for now. It'll allow us to basically contribute more back to the open source community. We have also, since this year, we have also started hackathon and exchanges, and we plan to make sure that whatever things we are building in terms of plugins or solutions, right, we'll be posting that back to the open source community via this new platform, right? So that will really help us. And in the plans, we also have this plan of building a Jaspersoft UI Central. We are very strong in the embedding space, and we want to make sure that we have a central page where we provide all the inputs. This is just for the educational purposes, right? Where we provide all the inputs around themes, visualize, or anything that helps our customers to embed much more effectively. So we'll be launching that soon. That is in our plans, and hopefully it will help customers. It will give them much more information, and we'll be able to see much more contribution from them as well. I will be running a Jaspersoft SOD, what we call roadmap, a statement of direction webinar soon. And this, we'll be posting the event on our events page. And anyone who's interested in looking at what is our plans for next 12 months or so, please do plan to attend that webinar and give us feedback on what you see in the SOD. We also have plans to do some customer specific sessions for customer advisory board. We used to do this in past. We somehow stopped this in between, but we are trying to bring them back again. These would be very invite only customer events where certain customers will be invited. They will present, and they will get access to direct to engineering, to our field team as well, and discuss on a one-on-one basis. In the same way, we'll bring back the pit crew events. These are regional events, right? One of the things that we might start is the Jaspersoft Dev Days. This is just to help customers or developers, and give them a chance to directly interact with our engineering team and see how they can come in and basically either customize or develop using Jaspersoft. So those are some of the events that we're planning to do. And as we come up with the dates, we will post all the events on our events page, and also our LinkedIn page. We have a dedicated LinkedIn page, and we'll continue to post all the updates there. Okay, so with that, I will hand it over to Anna here for the UIUX demo.
Okay, I'll share my screen. Okay, hello everybody. I'll be showing you some of the UI improvements from our 8.0 and our 8.1 releases, and I'll be starting with 8.0 improvements, then I'll move into the 8.1. So starting with 8.0, I'll show you how we've improved the formatting options in Ad Hoc Designer and Dashboard Designer. So I'll start with Ad Hoc, opening up Sales Mix by City. Now, in addition to the filters panel, which we're all accustomed to, you now see a format visualization panel. In previous versions, you had to open a dialog box that was on the canvas, and you had to navigate through various tabs to access the formatting options. And on top of that, it was a bit confusing because you were presented with options for all chart types, not just the type that you have selected. So for example, I have my spider chart, and I open that dialog and I might see gauge chart options. If I change them, it wouldn't take effect, but they were there, and that's a bit confusing. So here, the format visualization is only showing you the options for the chart type that we have selected. So I have a spider chart. If I were to choose a crosstab, we'll see crosstab formatting options. If I was to choose a pie chart, I will only see pie chart options. So close out of that. And another nice thing is that changes are instantaneous. So I add a title and it appears immediately. I can show and hide. So there's no clicking and apply button. Changes just take effect immediately. So now we'll look at the same thing in dashboards. I'll create a new one. It will let me. There we go. So here we see the dashboard settings. So these are the global dashboard settings. I haven't added any dashlets to the canvas yet, but when I do, then I see the dashlet settings section show up here. And this is contextual. So because I've added an ad hoc view dashlet, these are dashlet settings for an ad hoc view. If I add a filter, I see settings for this filter, and this is for the multi-select because that is what I have showing. So this is the actual filter itself. If I select the filter dashlet, then I see the settings for the dashlet. And then I can add a report dashlet. And now I see settings for report dashlet. So those are the new properties panels. There's a couple more dashboard improvements I'd like to show. And the first is hyperlink support for tables and crosstabs. So I'll undo all of this. Add. Let's go with this one. So this is an ad hoc view with a crosstab. So in the dashlet settings for this, there's a hyperlink section. I can enable hyperlinks and choose an action. So I have 4 options: update page, open new page, replace page, or replace dashlet. I'll just leave update page. And then the last thing I wanted to show you is dashboard export. So to do that, I go up to the dashboard settings, general, and show export button. So then if I move to the view mode, and go to the export button, I have 2 options. There's the screenshot option, which is the way that it had always been. You know, you get your format of choice, and it's just what you see on the screen. Or detailed, as Abhishek was explaining before, you get the entire report. So I would get this entire crosstab, not just what I'm seeing on the screen. So now I'll move into the improvements from version 8.1. So the first of those is user favorites. So on the home page, you see a new section on the left, favorites. I haven't added any favorites yet, so I see a message telling me your favorite ad hoc views, OLEP views, reports, report options, and dashboards will appear here. And I can favorite any type of resource that I want. I can favorite an image file, I can favorite a data source, a domain, but those aren't going to show here. Only these types are going to show the ad hoc views, reports, and so on. So let's add some favorites. Go to search results. So I'll add an ad hoc view, and you'll see as I hover over each row, I see a star icon. So that's the favorite option. So I just click on the star. Let's favorite a report. Show all types. Accounts report. I can do report options. So let's do Mighty Good Sales report option, dashboard. And now let's try a domain. And in addition to clicking on the star, you can also right click and do add to favorites. And I can do a data source as well. Add to favorites. Okay, so if I go back to the home page, I see my favorite ad hoc view, favorite report, favorite dashboard, and favorite report option. And if I go to see all favorites, this shows everything. So data source, domain. Okay, and now moving on to our admin beta console. And Abhishek had showed you some screenshots of that earlier. So that is located in admin console. Go to manage menu, admin console. And now there's two tabs here. We have schedules, so that's your list of schedules, and diagnostics. And this is just like the old schedules list, except it has more capabilities. You can sort on pretty much any column, and you can filter. And there are additional filters if you don't see the filter that you want there. So I could filter on user, just like so. And if I want to delete that filter, I can just make that go away. And diagnostics, we have three categories here. We have about Jasper Report Server, repository details, and repository database. And under the About Jasper Report Server, we have these report runs by day list, and we only show you 6 here, but there is approximately a month's worth of data here. So you can expand this if you want to see everything, or collapse it if you want to see less. And same thing with the SQL keywords. This is generally going to be a very long list, so we truncate it and allow you to see more just by clicking see more or see less. Okay, now moving on to a bunch of smaller improvements that we have made in ad hoc. So let me get back to the home page. And for this, I'm going to be comparing the old version to the new version so you can better see how things have changed. So go back to the home page on both things. So this is pre 8.1. And I'll create an ad hoc view. Actually, open this ad hoc view and okay, so back to the previous version. I'll start building a crosstab. I'll start by adding fields first. So we'll go with country, brand, and you can see as I add my fields, the crosstab starts building itself on the canvas. Product name, add my measures, and there we go. So in 8.1, it's a little different. I'll start by adding my fields, country, and now you'll see that nothing is happening on the canvas. And that is because you are required to add measures before the crosstab starts building itself on the canvas. So here I add store sales and unit sales, and I see my crosstab. Another change is how the crosstab fills the canvas. So in pre 8.1, it was only as wide as it needed to be to fit its contents. And now the crosstab fills the entire content, the entire canvas. So that means that the columns may be wider than necessary to fit their contents. Also, the expand and collapse behavior has changed. So in older versions of JRS, if I clicked on something in the country column, it will expand brand. If I expand something in brand, then it expands product name. So it's one level off, and we have moved those expand collapse buttons into their corresponding levels. So if I expand something under brand, I expand brand. And if I expand something under product name, then I expand the product name. So going back to the old version, I'm going to demonstrate new scroll behavior. So I'll add store type to columns. And so the crosstab runs off the right side of the screen, and that means I get a scroll bar on the bottom of the canvas. If I do the same thing in 8.1, the scroll bar is on the crosstab itself. So that's all for crosstab specific changes. Now I'll show you some of the changes for charts and tables. Before I do that, there was one other thing I wanted to show you. So in older versions, we had this preview mode, preview button in the toolbar. You click on that, you would go to preview mode. Click back to go to design mode. And we still have that functionality. We just moved it out of the toolbar and it's up in the title bar now. So you can switch between editing and viewing. Okay, now let's look at chart and table visualization types. So I'm going to open a new ad hoc view. Store segment performance. So I have my bubble chart here, and what's new for charts is that I can select sample data, full data, or no data. Previously, this was only available for tables and crosstabs. And finally, we have a couple new things to show for tables. And I'll open a different view to illustrate that. Drink sales by category. So if I look at the format visualization panel, I have my data details set to details. If I switch to details and totals, we can see that the totals actually show the summary function. So we have count, all, we have sum, we have another sum. If I were to change that, say average, then I see that I have applied an average summary function. And then finally, we have similar to crosstab, we have different scroll behavior and tables. So I'll change to full data. And you'll see here that we have a scroll bar on the table instead of the canvas. So that was everything I wanted to show you on the UI improvements, and I can hand you off to Theodore now.
Thank you, Anna. Let's switch screens. My screen should come up shortly. And I hope you can see it. Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to present a demo of our newest product edition, the so-called JasperReports Web Studio product. This is what we would call the next generation report designer, because, you know, along our long history at TIBCO Jaspersoft, we had a report designer that used various technologies behind the scenes. The current designer, the Jaspersoft Studio Desktop, is an Eclipse-based application. It's installed, has installers for different operating systems. So the Web Studio is called the next generation because we're trying to get rid of the, you know, operating system footprint and move to the web with the web design work. This new product is available in at least 2 major types of deployments, and I'm going to start with the latest. Originally in the 8.0 feature train, release train that we had at the end of the last year, we released what we call the standalone distribution of JasperReports Web Studio, which is basically a web application that you start separately, runs on its own, and enables you to connect to repositories to design reports and edit them. But I'm going to start with the newest edition, meaning this web designer has reached JasperReports server itself. So this is why the screen we're looking at right now is the login screen of a local instance of JasperReports server that I have on my machine. So I'm going to log in. Organization 1, JasperAdmin. And here I'm browsing the repository, and I'm going to one of the sample reports in public sample reports, and we can look at this one accounts report. I'm just run it just to see what kind of report we're talking about. So it's a tabular report with a title, with a logo. It has multiple pages, and usually this kind of pixel perfect report, because it has a somewhat complex layout, and certainly many of you know that reports created with JasperReports can be as complex as you need. But this one has been created with the Jaspersoft Studio desktop application and has reached this repository by being uploaded, either using the web UI of JasperReports server, or by using a plugin in our desktop designer to connect to GRS and upload this file. So basically, when this report unit was created, at some point during report unit creation, there was a file uploaded, a GRXML file, a report template was uploaded here. And that GRXML report template has been authored outside this application, right? But today, what we're looking at is a new option on the right click, is open in editor. So when I click this, the program presents me with a list of files that I could design. These files are to be found in the report unit that we're dealing with, the accounts report. So it is made of several files. The main report is a GRXML report template, and it is this one that I want to edit today. So I pick it and I click OK. And I end up in what we call JasperReports Web Studio. This design tool is very similar to Jaspersoft Studio. And of course, some of you has asked on the chat what happened to iReport. So these iReport is our very old designer. They all have the same tools at the base. So in the central area of the screen, we have the actual, what you see is what you get design view, where we can select elements, move them around, drag and drop, use the mouse to play with them. On the sides, we have the palette with the types of objects or elements that we can drag and drop and place in our design. I just added a label, but I can undo that operation. So we should be familiar with the palette because it's present in all our designers. Also, the outline view, which describes the overall structure of our report template, which is made of different bands, page footer, detail band, title. These are containers, free-form containers where we place elements at absolute position and size, which makes our report templates pixel perfect because we control precisely the position and size of these elements in the design. So palette outline. And then on the left, or on the right, sorry, we have the properties view. So every time I click an element or a container or some entity in my object model, I see the properties that belong to that particular selection. So there can be text fields that I select or images, and the the properties change in accordance to the type of the element that I selected. So these concepts are, again, found in all these designers that we produce. So now we replicated them in the web. When it comes to non-visual aspects of my report, like the connection to the data or the so-called data set, we have a separate tab here. And in this particular case, we have a main data set for the report, but we actually use a table component which has its own sub-data set. And that's why we see two data sets here in this panel. And for each data set, I have a query editor, which I can show by clicking on this toggle button. So for the table data set, clicking on the editor toggle button shows me the SQL query behind the table data set. So we're basically selecting some records from the accounts table, and we order them by some of the columns. This SQL or this query editor, just like in Desktop Studio or the former iReport, it looks different depending on the query language, because we not only support SQL, but we support XPath or XML, we support Hibernate QL or AGBQL, various query languages. And they each of them has a different different query editor to help edit those queries. So these are all the tools that make up our visual report designers. What's interesting about the properties here, some types of elements tend to have very many properties. So if I'm specifically looking for something about color, I just could type in color in the search box here, and I only see properties that have something to do with the color. So for example, here, if I would want to change the back color of this text field, put some pink, I think I also have to make it non-opaque, non-transparent. So it's this toggle button, okay? So I change the color of this text field. Just like in any of these report designers, I can preview my change by hitting this button, which switches the mode to report preview mode. And I see my my usual 47 long page report here, and it has the change that I just made. Again, also, just like our editors, we have access to the source code of this report. This is the source of the JRXML. JRXML is just for report specific XML format. And if I'm courageous enough, I could edit this directly, and my change will be picked up, and I could preview my change. All right, so you saw how I just modify. Let's save it. I modified this report without quitting JasperReports server. I have been in JasperReports server web UI all the time, so I modified this report, and I could have created it from scratch, just using JasperReports server itself. Okay, what else can we see? Well, JasperReports Web Studio is not just the visual designer that I just showed you. It's actually a series of editors, and in time we will support more and more file formats. For now, I could show you, for example, that if there's, for example, a CSS file somewhere, we have this opening editor option available for CSS files, and we can edit them. Before introducing this Web Studio in JRS, The only option was to basically upload the CSS file. I was editing it with Notepad or some other text editor externally, and I had to upload it here. Now I can just edit it in the application itself, you know. So yeah, much more flexibility in working with the various types of files here. All right, so this is basically Web Studio in JRS. But as I mentioned already, Web Studio can be deployed separately. And the same UI components that we've seen here are available and look exactly the same in what we call Web Studio Standalone. So in this separate tab in my browser, I'm opening the homepage or the login page of JasperReports Web Studio standalone deployment. Is running on my machine in a Jetty web server and presents me with the login screen. The first option here, so I'm in a separate application, and from this application, I can manage or access resources that can be in external repositories. One of the external repositories we support with standalone Web Studio is a JasperReports server repository itself. So right now, I'm logging into JasperReports server instance to access its repository from outside. And I have a virtual machine running an instance of JasperReports server. It has to be HTTPS. So I prepared it in advance because of the course issues in the browser. So we need to use HTTPS everywhere nowadays because we're basically logging in from one application to another, from one domain to another. So communication has to be secured. Let me log in with, I don't know, JasperAdmin, why not? Again, JasperAdmin. And right now, I see a repository browser. So this is part of the Web Studio own UI. I have a repository browser in Web Studio, but I can recognize some of the folders that are usually deployed with a vanilla installation of JasperReports server. I have my public folder, and inside public, we have samples and we have reports. And we find again that accounts report. And I click on it. And right now, it shows me the contents of the report unit as a subfolder, because in essence, this is what a report unit is some sort of subfolder or hidden folder that contains the resources that make up this report. And we again recognize the main JRXML, which I can edit with my visual designer when I click. And we see that same report, and you would ask me, well, why is it not pinged? But it's not pinged because I'm logging into a different instance of JRS, not the local one I used before. I didn't log into my local one because my local one was not configured with HTTPS. So yeah, but it's basically the same sample report. And again, I could make changes to it and hit the preview button. And it would give me what you see is what you get, kind of preview, because behind the scenes, it makes a call to JasperReports server to give me this output. So when I preview and test my modifications, I can be sure it looks exactly as the server produces it, because it's the server that gives me this output. So I'm working directly with the resources that are in this remote repository, and my changes are made directly there and are previewed using the reporting engine that's coming from that JasperReports server instance. All right. Again, source preview, going back to modification, to design mode, and exit. Now, In addition to this ability to connect to a remote JasperReports server and edit and manage the repository from outside, I can log into other types of repositories. For example, I have a Google account. It's actually a personal account where I keep some sample reports. So I had this login to Google button and would ask me, well, what's your Google account? And I will use a personal account I have. This is the Google login screen, right? It asks me for the password. At some point, he might even ask me for some, two-factor authentication with my phone. So let's see that. I hope I got the password right. Okay, so we're now browsing with the same repository manager UI. We're browsing the contents of my personal Google Drive account. And in this folder samples, I have some reports. And let me open one of them, click on it, and it opens the same designer, right? And I'm going to hit preview and give you a heads up that it will take a little while because of the nature of how Google Drive keeps resources. In Google Drive, there's no notion of folder, but we do use folders, even though they are virtual folders in our repository representation. So we wrote some code to simulate folders using Google Drive resource IDs. So every time I point to a sub-report or something, which is referenced using a relative URI within the repository, I need to transform that relative path into Google Drive IDs. And it takes time because for each path segment, I'm making a Google Drive call to go to the parent and to the parent and to the parent and build up the whole URI and be able to locate the resources involved in running this particular report. This is why it took a little while. Google Drive is slow in this sense. But imagine, I could have my reports stored in my Google Drive and I can preview them and, work with resources that I stored in this type of repository. The tool looks the same no matter what the repository is. In addition to this, I can log out and do the same with a GitHub repository. So when I hit this button, it will ask me for my GitHub account. And I do have a GitHub account, which is actually my day-to-day GitHub account. I hope I'm not spelling it wrong. Oh, I did. Okay. So it's Theodore D, source format. Now we're stuck. I couldn't remember my password. That's great. Try again.
All right.
Oh, this is
hard to hit something, right? So we can probably cover it later.
okay.
Later.
Let me just try one more time.
Sure. And just to let everyone know, right, these kind of recordings and also detailed videos on Web Studio GitHub will be posted again on our YouTube channel. So even if we miss it here, it will be shown very soon.
Oh, it's a missing S here. I'm sorry about that.
There you go.
Right. So these are all the GitHub projects that I have access to, and I'm going to select one of them. And it presents me the only branch that I have in this project is the master branch going inside. And I'm basically looking for some of the samples. These are the JasperReports library distribution samples, going to one of them that I know can be previewed right from this repositories because of not using a data source in this particular case. It's a report that describes the various types of geometrical shapes that we can put in reports, and I can hit the preview button and run it. Of course, I can modify everything I want in such a report and preview the changes as I go. What's interesting about GitHub is that every modification that I save with this editor would actually translate into a commit that is performed with my GitHub account in the GitHub repository that I'm working with. So this is because this is how Git works. So every change is a commit that gets pushed. All right. Okay, so I think I pretty much, okay, I can show you that there's, besides the report designer, we have data adapter designer or editor. Data adapters are these special type of XML resources that give us the ability to connect to a data source or exploit data files as data sources for reports, like Excel files or comma-separated values files can be used as data sources for reports if we just put some metadata around them, like describe what columns they have, what types these columns are, or in the case of a connection, of course, I need to provide the password, the host of the server, the name of the database. So all this metadata that describes how do we get access to the data we want to use for a report, we call it data adapter. And we have special designers for all the types of data adapters that we support. For example, a JDBC connection data adapter is about specifying which JDBC drivers we want to use, what's the server we want to connect to, the username and the password. If it's a comma-separated values, we just need to say what character is used as a field delimiter, what's the record delimiter, how do we want to convert dates to date objects using what patterns. And of course, we need to pick a file. We need to tell where the CSV file is. So you see, for every different data adapter, it presents me with the information that I need to specify in each case. So it's helpful it gives us an easy way to connect to data. And this is just one type of editor or designer in a long series of designers that are going to be added to this web tool, web designer. We will have designer for external style sheet files. If you're familiar with styles in JasperReports, they can be stored in separate files, and we have designers for that give you a preview of those styles, how they look, so that you can see them in advance. We would be having visual editors for chart themes and everything that we normally have in our desktop designer today. Again, I will repeat what Abby just said moments ago. Jaspersoft Studio Desktop is still the most powerful designer for our technology, and it will continue to support and improve it and add to it. It's just that the Web Studio comes with other advantages that we want to exploit, and we want to come up with new ways to edit reports and make it easier for deployment and for the web world in which we all live today. And I think with that, I pretty much covered everything I wanted to cover today. So I'm giving back to you guys.
All right, thank you, Theodore. Before Damayanti, we can move to Q&A, but there are a couple of questions on Studio, right? Let's take that first. But as Theodore said, that the Web Studio will continue to evolve. It is not at the parity level of Desktop Studio. So we will do that over multiple releases as Theodore highlighted. And the first question that I had was that what is the feature in desktop that cannot be migrated to Web Studio? I think they might be referring to the compilers, but Theodore, I'll let you answer that.
Because of the web nature of Web Studio, we cannot rely heavily on the Java platform because with Desktop Studio, which is an Eclipse application, we have the Java compiler. We can offer compilation validation or expression validation right away. With Web Studio, we would have to have a server-side service that would give this validation back to the client, saying, well, this particular expression you've written is not valid in Java or is not valid in Groovy or whatever expression language we use. So that would be a feature that would arrive later in this Web Studio. I would say it's not the difficulty of reproducing features that would be the reason not to reproduce them or re-implement them. One other reason we created Web Studio is we want to have a simpler or a more user-friendly report designer, because the Desktop Studio today is very powerful. You can do anything in it, but for certain user is intimidating. In order to use Desktop Studio, you need to have some background in Java programming or programming in general. And with Web Studio, we want to make it easier for non-technical users to put together reports. And I would give you an example. We have a very powerful table designer in Desktop Studio today, but it's very likely we're not going to reproduce it with Web Studio, because with Web Studio, we want to create a much simpler table a table designer that would help create 80% of tables that people need. With just simple drag and drop, ad hoc like nature, things like that, simple table designer, keep it simple, cover most of the use cases. And if anyone needs a more complex table, they can either switch to a complex table mode or go straight to Desktop Studio, where they have full control over their tables. So yeah, Web Studio will gradually gain features, but we're not going to port everything from desktop because of various reasons, including not wanting to make it complicated again. Want to keep it more simple and lightweight.
Thanks, Theodore. A couple of more questions on Web Studio, and then I'll hand it over to Damayanti. One is that, do we plan to build an image preview feature for the images in Web Studio?
Certainly. Right. Yeah, I actually, I think the guys probably have something already for a next release, but it's not only about images, it's also for charts. We should be able, just like in Desktop Studio, to give you a preview of how the chart will look like using demo data or sampling. This is a feature that Desktop Studio has, and we will certainly re-implement here because it's very useful.
Okay. The last question that I'll take for Web Studio is that, do we support two-factor authentication to services like GitHub and Google Drive?
Yes. It didn't ask me for my phone confirmation because I didn't configure my account with two-factor authentication, but it would have followed whatever authentication you have configured for your account. And because those are login screens from Google or from GitHub respectively, and they follow the OAuth 2 protocol, which provision for two-factor authentication and other such mechanisms. So it's just that my accounts were configured in a simpler manner.
All right. So with that, let's hand it over back to Damayanti for the Q&A. She can go through some of the question and answers and also share some of the important links that we have.
Thank you, Abhishek. I'm just going to pull up my screen. Okay, so in the interest of time, if we did not answer anyone's questions, you can go ahead and email them to us at jsproductteam@tipco.com. We will try to respond to all of them. Okay. So a couple of questions that had come up were about support policy. What happens to support for 7X and below? So we have the entire end-of-life support policy along with timelines and this link over here. So you can go to this page to access all of the information. Then another one was about licenses for SQE, which is our scalable query engine, and Web Studio. Okay, so about this, you would have to speak to your accounts or your sales team. And you can also try a tryout for JRWS. So that's JasperReports Web Studio on jaspersoft.com/download. This is part of all of the 3 offerings there. So Jaspersoft BI Enterprise, as well as the JRIO Pro and JRIO at scale. I'm just looking at other questions that came up. Okay, so question to Abhishek. You mentioned that we have a few events coming up, and some of them you mentioned were invite only. So how do we go about registering for those?
So for the invite only events, it's best to reach out to your account team, or you can send us an email to the JS product team. And as we plan for these events, which will mostly be a regional event, we will definitely consider that.
Okay. Thanks, Abhishek. Okay, our next question was about sharing feedback. Since we did show a couple of demos here and people have had ideas about where to go from there. So we have a Jasper Ideas portal. This is the link. So you can send in all your ideas here. We do monitor it and there's full transparency. So you can see ideas from other customers. You can see the status of your ideas. So I would urge you to go to this site, the Ideas portal, and go ahead and send feedback our way. Okay. So the next question is about cloud releases. Okay, so for cloud releases, 8.1 cloud releases will be released soon. They are in progress at the moment, and we're expecting them to be out very shortly. Okay, so we did get a few questions about making recordings available. Okay, so we will have demo videos and more explanatory videos up on our YouTube channel. So there are some videos already, and there are more to come on the channel over here. Okay, and follow up to the question to Abhishek about events. So the events, so the public events, you can go to jaspersoft.com events and you can register for them over there. And as Abhishek mentioned, for the invite only list, you can email the product team. Okay, so it looks like I have covered the questions that came in.
There's one more question, I think from Kenneth, is will the ad hoc editor receive more of charting capabilities? The answer is yes. We'll plan to add charting capabilities on both sides, on the reporting side as well as on the ad hoc side. And I do see your question, which so this may, I'll pose this question to Theodore. Which version has the ability to generate reports at a specific time according to parameters from another procedure or SQL field values, but external to the report?
I think this can be achieved with bursting, but what I was thinking right now was whether the actual time of the bursted job can be controlled with values from a field. What I can tell you right away is that when we perform report bursting, so when we trigger report execution automatically with the scheduler, the bursted reports are triggered right now, or put in a queue of jobs that are in a way executed in the background immediately. I think the question is whether the bursting could actually create jobs that are planned in time using a time field in the data. I don't think it's the case right now, but and if it's not, we could consider it as a request for enhancement for a follow-up release. Again, I would have to check with my team, but if it's not possible to control the time of the triggered job, then this is a good feature request and we'll consider for a next release.
Right, Dimitri, I don't think so. We have when report bursting documentation will be available. It'll be posted soon. Right, so our documentation team is working on it. So we'll keep posting all these updates, and these will be available on docs.tipco.com, all the documentation guides. And as Theodore said, right, if you don't find this feature available in this release, you're more than welcome to post this idea on our Jasper Ideas portal, and we'll definitely take that up for our next release of report bursting. Right, I don't see any other open questions.
Sorry, I was on mute. Okay, so it looks like we have covered the questions, but if anyone has any further questions, feel free to write to us at jsproductteam@tipco.com. We also have a feedback form that we would like you to fill up. I will send this in the chat box as well. Give me 1 second. Okay, so this will take about 2 minutes, and it'll really help us with getting feedback on how to run events, and also for the products, what other events you would like to see. So I do urge you to take a couple of minutes to fill up this form. Okay, so the link is in the chat. All right, so thank you everyone for attending the webinar today. You've been a great audience, and thank you to the presenters. So Abhishek, Theodore, Anna, thanks for the great sessions. So we'll be in touch, you know where to contact us. We have the email address sent. Okay, so thank you everyone. Have a great day or night.